questions that matter, lighting the fire to scatter, dancing with thoughts that flatter, building the dreams we chase after. Whispers are turning to thunder, echoes are pulling us under, fascism stuck in the night, guiding us into the light, exercising the mind so bright, smart equal particles take flight.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Thank you for joining me here for a special broadcasting of Tazisms as we continue to go through updates regarding the Epstein/Maxwell files. Coming in right off the bat, let's get into just how long has Pam Bondi known Donald Trump? Take a look for yourself.
I met him before I was Attorney General. I think I actually met him in college, but I didn't know him well then at all.
Go figure. Look at that. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Oh, would you look at that? Just look.
Very, very telling. And I want to remind people that Pam Bondi has seen everything in the files, unredacted. Since her days in Florida, she knows of the egregiousness. And I want to reiterate this to you because I want you to think about the fact that instead of her going, like she made in campaign promises while she was campaigning to be AG of Florida, instead of her going, you know what, this is egregious. These people need to be held accountable. These victims deserve justice, even for those that justice would come posthumously. Nope, her first thought was, I need to protect. My default damsel in distressness and my whiteness comes first above any and all things. See, when I tell y'all think that, justice is just reserved for white people or just for rich white people. No. You have to remember the systems that make up the United States were never meant for an entire community to benefit from them. The hierarchy of racism was never for an actual race to sit at the top of it. It was meant for the white person who felt that they were the most superior to sit at the top. This is why they wait and clamor for a leader. But let's continue. Coming from Fortune.com, the Epstein files reveal an alarming truth about corporate America. 2 weeks after the U.S. Justice Department's last batch of 3 million Jeffrey Epstein files revealed the business elite from Hollywood to New York to Dubai, who were friendly with the late disgraced financier, the corporate world is still sifting through his murky paper trail. And boards and business leaders are facing tricky questions as they decide how to dole out consequences for executives who were Epstein's close confidants even after he was convicted of sex crimes in 2008 and registered as a sex offender. And before you all go, well, how was this murky? I think y'all need to take a look at the history of business in the United States, specifically when women were allowed to enter the business realm at positions that were essentially equivalent to men or gained the ability to become the superior to men. They have been trading promotions and raises for sexual favors for a very long time. So they're now having to reconcile with not only the egregious behavior and the breaking of the law that surrounded Epstein, but they're having to hold a mirror up to themselves now as well. Among the thorny questions they're asking, who knew what? When? Did an executive commit a crime or just exhibit bad judgment? And to what standard do we hold leaders in a society that has developed a high tolerance for scandal? First of all, who said the business leaders were leaders? Because they rarely know what's going on or how anything works. But the biggest question is, what did they learn from Epstein that they used within our business? Who can pop up now and receive justice from our business because they really don't care about the people. They care about the bottom line, which is profitability. And it would be nice if they would get back to caring about the people, because without caring about the people, you have no employees. And without employees, you have no one to pay. And if you don't pay anyone, you have no consumers. People forget about that. Hey, Vix. People forget about that. But now we are starting to get answers, and some corporate heads are starting to roll. On Thursday, Goldman Sachs said General Counsel Catherine Ruemmler will leave the bank in June after the document showed she stayed in close contact with Epstein until 2019, at one point calling him Uncle Jeffrey, as she thanked him for high-end gifts. And on Friday, Dubai-based logistics group DP World named a new chair and new CEO, signaling the departure of Sultan Ahmad bin Sulayem. Now, for the complete list of people who have been forced to step down, well, the complete list as of right now, you can look at last night's update regarding the Epstein Maxwell files. Okay. Trigger warning, clutch your pearls. Don't drink anything at this moment. Don't eat anything. If you choke, spit something out, destroy something, it is not my responsibility. You were warned. Coming from okmagazine.com. Jeffrey Epstein's emails exposed. Late pedophile talks about buying cages amid rumors girls were held captive on his island. Jeffrey Epstein was interested in purchasing cages, according to the latest files released in relation to the convicted sex offender. The files revealed an interaction between Karina Shuliak, a former romantic partner of Epstein, and a woman identified as Stephanie Hodges. When going through, should you decide to peruse the parameters of the Epstein-Maxwell files, keep in mind that a lot of people who were romantically linked to Epstein for long periods of time fall into two categories. They were co-conspirators / recruiters and fellow molesters, or they were victims that he promised a better life to. Because he was, it's well documented, promising people like, oh, I'll do for you what I did to person X. I got them married off and I got them this career, blah, 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 blah. Because keep in mind, he enjoyed being around girls and women who came from meager beginnings, that were not rich, that would be impressed by being in his sphere, that could easily become dependent upon his financial assistance, that would get comfortable and adopt into their standard of living what he introduced them to. And there are plenty of women who did go on to get married to people in his sphere because of him. Now, they can choose to out themselves as they choose to out themselves. Not my story to tell. Should they discuss it publicly, then we can discuss it and we can break down the whole Stockholm syndrome of it all on a very direct level. Until then, we don't do that here. Jeffrey Epstein was interested in buying cages. Epstein's name was CC'd on each message, which began on June 5th. Got on my screen and I wiped a bit too much. June 5th, 2013. Hodges wrote, Captain Ramon's parents have pet store in Puerto Rico. Bird pics attached. They are available in stock. The message was forwarded to Shuliak by Epstein, who replied the next morning by writing, "Good morning, Stephanie. Jeffrey is requesting a price list for the birds. He is also wondering about the cages. I am not sure what size cage these birds should in. Could you check where they sell cages? I will also do some research online. Thank you." That is how it's written. Hodges responded with cage pricings, including some monkey, lemur, and cat pics. "Oh, I didn't realize they're so big. Are you going to put one of those big cages inside of the big round wall on the top of the mountain?" Shuliak wrote. Though it's unclear what the cage's intended purpose was, Epstein was accused of running an extensive sex trafficking and abuse scheme from his private Caribbean islands, Little St. John and Great St. James, according to a lawsuit filed by the Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands in 2020. The wealthy financier who died behind bars in 2019 was accused of bringing girls as young as 11 and 12. The lawsuit noted that a 15-year-old girl attempted to swim off the island after being forced to engage in sexual acts. She was reportedly found by Epstein and held captive on the island after her passport was confiscated. Epstein clearly used the Virgin Islands as his residence in the U.S. Virgin Islands at Little St. James as a way to conceal and to be able to explain his activity there, Virgin Island Attorney General Denise M. George said in a statement. The email exchange was included in the last batch of files released by the Department of Justice related to the Epstein investigation on January 30th. Select members of Congress were granted access to the uncensored records earlier this month, but some lawmakers are now claiming that the files contain mysterious redactions. House Judiciary Ranking Member Jamie Raskin was one of the first to access the files, which are set up on 4 computers in the Justice Department facility. Lawmakers are not allowed to use electronics or have any additional staff when accessing the files. They're also not allowed to take notes, which is weird because this whole thing, hey, can we not, it is to help the investigation to bring forth justice, but they're doing everything, and by they, I'm talking about Pam Bondi and the Justice Department, to hinder that. Boy. Let's close these down. Okay, coming from weku.org, Epstein files fallout take down elite figures in Europe while U.S. reckoning is muted. Because 'tis the way of America. Fuck yeah. The contrast is striking. In Europe, some people whose names come up in the Epstein files are facing consequences, but in the U.S., not so much. European royals, government officials, politicians, and others are losing jobs and titles over their connection to the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. European law enforcement agencies are opening investigations based on recent troves of documents released by the U.S. government. Prominent Americans with apparent ties to Jeffrey Epstein, including President Donald Trump Sr. and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, have so far largely kept their positions of power. Because y'all some bitches. Epstein also associated with Democratic politicians and academics, including former President Bill Clinton. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing that. Let's stop doing that, because all y'all are doing is taking accountability off of other people. Everybody knows that each friendship is not the same. Each professional relationship is not the same. Each casual relationship is not the same. There are things that you will do with somebody that you will not do with somebody else. And it has nothing to do with the length of time that you've known them. But let's stop. Every time we bring up Trump, we go, well, Bill Clinton. You're calling and hauling Bill Clinton and his wife in front of Congress. Until you do the same for Trump, shut up. Until you bring Woody Allen and his wife before Congress, shut up. Stop trying to insinuate. You're so good at, you want the good, salacious gossip. These are people's actual lives. People were actually traumatized. This is not a freaking Tyler Perry movie. This is not a Hallmark film. This is not a Lifetime production. While appearing in the Epstein files is not necessarily proof of wrongdoing, for Europeans, it's been very humiliating to see their rich and famous hobnobbing with Epstein, a fake American billionaire, and convicted sex trafficker of minors, said Richard Painter, a professor at the University of Minnesota Law School who served as the chief ethics lawyer to President George W. Bush. But here is the thing. The Epstein/Maxwell files is a conglomerate of different document types from notes to reports to different things. Okay. Number one. Number two, in Europe, they're like, okay, they're using their smarticle particles. They're like, okay, was this person just mentioned? How were they mentioned? Were they receiving invites? Let's look into what this means. They're not taking things at the surface, and they're going to these people going, hey, we got some questions for you. Like, why? Explain. Where over here, people are lying and making excuses for folks because complexion for protection. They see themselves as somebody else. They're their favorite politician. They're their favorite actor or actress. People will absolve somebody else and forgive the most egregious things if the person will continue to shut up and dribble, metaphorically speaking. But in the US, Painter says the connection between money and politics can shield some of those named in the files. You've got all this massive amount of money in politics, so the billionaire class is definitely going to want to be protected, he said. Let's stop saying that. Let's stop saying that this doesn't have anything to do with money. And before you want to come out the bag on me, I want you to hear me out. There is something that connects all of us that we say, and we hear people say damn near on a daily basis. We all know who is willing to cover for pedophiles, and pedophiles do not exist on a classist basis. This ain't got nothing to do with money. The cover-ups, the looking the other way has nothing to do with people being paid off, with money being involved. No, nothing. If you're going to play the theme song of Law and Order SVU, let's pay attention to the lessons from the show, okay? For a very long time, it was standard practice for what we now call egregious, creepy, and a crime. That was the norm. Y'all got grandmas and granddaddies and parents right now that you sit and fondly tell the story of how they met, when they got married, and you force yourself to omit the age gap. That granddaddy was a middle-aged man and grandma was barely out of middle school. You'll talk about specifically the Catholic Church and them just moving priests and bishops all around instead of placing these people within the judicial system so that they can properly be held accountable for molesting children. You know, a woman, a femme-presenting individual, and everybody in between that's covering for a broke-ass pedophile right now in the ghetto, in the hood, in the trailer park. So let's stop acting as if people like Jeffrey Epstein only exist because they have money. Because there's somebody right now without a pot to piss in that's getting away with the same shit. If you think I'm joking, look at the tale of Robert Kelly, R. Kelly, if you will. What did we find out from surviving R. Kelly? He was doing what he was doing before he made it big, before he had the coin in his pocket. And people were on board with covering for him and everything else and not saying a word not because they were benefiting financially. They had the same mindset. And if they didn't have the same mindset, knowing about what was going on gave them leverage over another person. And we know how valuable that currency of leverage is to people, especially in the United States. So let's stop equating being a monster to financial security and status, because that's wrong. In the United Kingdom, former Prince Andrew was stripped of his royal titles and forced to move out of the royal estate. That was over claims that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, as he is now known, had sex with teenage girls, which he has denied during his visits with Epstein. Well, first of all, yes, Europe deserves a pat on the back, but also a stiff kick in the throat and the undercarriage. Because let us not forget, many years ago, Andrew brazenly took a stroll through Central Park with Epstein after going to visit Epstein at Epstein's Manhattan estate. Epstein threw a party for him. They were hobnobbing. Woody Allen was there. His wife was there. George Stephanopoulos was there. Katie Couric was there. You know, the who's who. And this was after Epstein's original conviction, after Epstein had to register as a sex offender. The writing had been on the wall. People already knew. But one thing for certain, two things for sure. Y'all know what the British are going to do? Ensure that on the marketing, the PR standpoint of it all, they're always going to make sure that they try to look better than the United States at all costs. Keep in mind that this is a nation that's changed its accents, okay, to disassociate itself with its ancestry that it kicked out of Britain that ended up coming over here. So let's put things in perspective. Yes, it is a good thing that they are holding people accountable now, but a lot of this information is not new. It is not new. As much as they are knee deep in the Royals business over there, y'all thought that they were going to let this scandal rest? Let's not forget that Virginia Roberts Giuffre for a long time was not believed because of the British tabloid, the Daily Mail, paying her to initially speak publicly about her story. And they cut out the fact that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor had slept with her. And they tried to originally spin it like she was impressed and she loved all this stuff, as if she as a victim wasn't the victim. Like she was just a regular schmegular average UK call girl. Now, really quickly, my darlings, my darlings, my darlings. We're going to take a quick pause for the cause for an ad brought to you by GCPR Radio. See you in 2 and 2. You're listening to GCPR, the heartbeat of the World Wide Web. From the morning commute to the late night grind, we're right there with you. But we're more than just music and news. We're a platform for the voices that make this community move. Does your business have a story to tell? Because we have the ears you want to reach. From live remotes at your front door to digital campaigns that follow our listeners wherever they go, GCPR Radio connects you to the people who matter most, your neighbors. Let's grow together. Visit us at gcpr.live/advertise-with-us.html. And let's get your brand on the airwaves today. GCPR, where every voice matters.
What do you mean Uncle Luke from 2 Live Crew was so uncomfortable at a Mar-a-Lago party hosted by Trump in the 90s that he left? Uncle Luke, who has a song called Pop That P Word, was uncomfortable because the girls at the party did not appear to be of age. Trump took him and others on a tour of the property before the party got started, saying, "Yeah, we got a bunch of pageant girls here tonight, pageants in town." Luke said, "I was afraid someone was going to extort me." There was no DJ. There was no music. There was just one room after another of people who have interest in children in a particular way, just getting into it. If Trump was never on Epstein Island, which I think he was, would he have to be there if he's doing the same goddamn thing at Mar-a-Lago? Thank you for your attention to this matter.
And that, my dear, is the question of the hour. If we're doing the same thing and you teach me a portion of your ways, do I need to travel to you? If you like a recipe of mine and I teach you the recipe, you don't have to wait for me to make it and come to me to have it, correct? Now, you may enjoy it even more when I make it because you don't have to spend the money, exert the energy, and take care of the cleanup afterwards. Keep that in mind. Now, coming from hoodline.com, Chicago power player bailed on Epstein Palm Beach lunch, Justice Department files reveal. Chicago investor Michael Farrow, the former Tribune publishing chair and one-time owner of the Chicago Sun-Times, backed out of a scheduled meeting with Jeffrey Epstein at Epstein's Palm Beach home on April 15, 2019, according to newly released federal records. The lunch was set for 1 p.m., but about 3 hours before the appointment, an assistant fired off a brief cancellation email, cutting the date short before it ever started. The short email thread sits quietly inside a sprawling batch of documents the Justice Department has posted online, a tiny detail in a massive public archive of Epstein's contacts. The specific emails, an introduction on April 8, 2019, and a cancellation on April 15th, surfaced in reporting that combed through the new materials. As reported by the Chicago Tribune, an assistant at Farrow's firm, Merrick Ventures, sent the last-minute note, and the Palm Beach meeting never happened. The Department of Justice has opened up a massive public Epstein library under the Epstein Files Transparency Act, posting millions of pages of court filings, photos, flight logs, emails, and other records that reporters are now mining for new leads. The Farrow emails pop up within the larger upload and are included in the department's searchable disclosures, according to the Department of Justice. The Chicago Tribune's review found Farrow's name in a relatively small slice of the material, about 27 references in a multi-million-page production. The email chain tied to the Palm Beach lunch ends with the assistant's cancellation. According to the reporting, there are no later entries in the release files that show Farrow meeting Epstein in Palm Beach or joining Epstein's schedule after April 15, 2019. This is why it's important to vet the information that you look at in these file drops, because the Department of Justice is intentionally, hey Harley, is intentionally not providing context for things, being very intentional with their redactions that skews what the context could be behind a lot of these documents. So you do have to keep that in mind. Farrow's Chicago media timeline. Farrow's run in Chicago media started when he bought Rappaport's, a parent company of the Chicago Sun-Times and several suburban papers, and expanded when he acquired a major stake in Tribune Publishing and became chair in February 2016. The stake and his rise at the company were traced by the Los Angeles Times, while coverage of his 2018 exit from the Tribune board notes he stepped down amid separate allegations. Local business reporting later tracked his retirement from the board and the subsequent changes in Tribune's ownership. Alden Global Capital ultimately bought the Tribune Publishing in a latter deal that reshaped control of the newspaper chain. What the files show and what they don't. The Justice Department has stressed that the library is made up of raw, unvetted material. That's the key. Oh, thank you, Harley. Raw, unvetted material. This is why I explained in another video. Like I said, if you want to keep up with all things, it's in a playlist, Epstein/Maxwell files, where I explain the different types of files, document types, that are in these files. And a lot of this is not vetted. Yes, I know Pam Bondi was like, yeah, we went through everything. We investigated it. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. And it's clear. And before you go, Bentez, what about previous administrations? There were active prosecutions going on. Did you forget? This one right here was prosecuted, convicted, and then extended all of her appeals all the way up to SCOTUS. Her last Hail Mary was last year, and they were like, deny. And now she's filed a habeas corpus. She filed it. No attorney would attach to it. Did you all also forget he decided to off himself during an open investigation where he was clink arrested and in jail for the second time? He didn't like it the first time. He was not going to go through that a second time. Okay. So you have to wait until the investigations, the court proceedings are all done before you can start releasing it. They didn't investigate any further. They didn't. They thought that this was enough bones, and they figured until this heifer starts singing like a caged bird, there's no reason for them to say anything. And they don't want her to sing like a caged bird. They don't. Because if you really look at things and use your smarticle particles, he was the spokesperson, the mascot, if you will. She's the dangerous one. This is why people are treating her name like she's damn Candyman and Beetlejuice's baby. They're more afraid of her than the damn Annabelle doll. They would rather bunk with Chucky and the bride of Chucky than get too close to this Heffernan. But keep in mind, this is unvetted material. So when you hear these people 5 seconds after a document drop, because they're dropping thousands upon thousands of documents at one time. This last time, 3 million pages. And you're going to tell me in 10 minutes these people are coming out giving you detailed breakdowns? Okay. With redactions added to protect victims. Yeah, the redactions are added, but it is not about protecting victims because entire list of victims' information have been put out. There was a victim who had her entire driver's license put out there. It is a trove that demands cautious reading and context, not instant conclusions. As the agency has noted, simply posting documents does not equal filing charges, and the federal references public so far are limited to the introduction and the cancellation email, not to any prosecutorial allegation. The Department of Justice has underscored the scale and provisional nature of the releases, and the broader timeline of Epstein's arrest and death remains part of the already established public record. Now, here's the thing. Before you go, well, why did he accept the meeting in the first place? That lets me know how far you've ever climbed the corporate ladder. And I'm not being mean, but I'm going to be educational right now. When somebody gets to a certain level, you're like, oh yeah, let's do business with them. When you're preparing for that meeting, there is some additional vetting. There is more checks and balances going on. And a lot of times people will find something like, oh no, we don't want that associated with our brand. Oh, I don't want that associated with me personally. Things like that. And cancellations happen every day, B. They do. And before you go, well, folks should just know, should they? You may be the type of person that's into pop culture, that keeps up with the who, when, why, what. But are you keeping up with all of pop culture, or just the pop culture that's attached to your culture that is aligned with your race, your ethnicity, your particular nationality? Like, you have to keep that in mind. And this is why I say a lot of times we have to remove ourselves out of these situations. Because far too often people are like, oh, well, everybody knows about this, or everybody knows this person. No, they don't. Think about recently, how many people were admitted that they never heard of Bad Bunny, one of the highest grossing global artists. But people are like, oh, I didn't know until MAGA started making a big deal about it. I'm glad they did, because now I like his music or whatever. Everybody doesn't know. And at certain levels in the corporate world, you don't have time for a personal life. You don't know what's going on. You barely can remember When the last time you went and bought fresh underwear? Let alone what's going on in the streets of Hollywood. Now, coming from the Kaufman Chronicle, I only knew about him from my friends and from a movie Bad Bunny was in. Exactly. Because the amount of people that, like, I guess every damn day over on TikTok, somebody is about to sue somebody because TikTok is a different beast. TikTok done got people way too comfortable with talking out the side of their neck and trying to put people personal business out there. I'm going to cuss you out. And I'll pull up and whoop your ass. I'm a Zennial. I'm Gen X. I nuck if you buck all the way through. Okay? There's only so much conversation we're going to have. I'm going to put that out there right now. It's only so much. You're going to cry. You're going to want to hit me, but I'm going to hit you first. I'm going to just tell you. But there's a young lady who is about to get sued for talking outside her neck. And people are like, and folks are like, who is this person? Why are they all over my timeline all of a sudden? And folks are like, you don't know who such and such is? How you don't know? They ran the blah, blah, blah insert. And it's like, everybody doesn't have the same interest as you. But I started to notice that everybody's like, oh, you don't know this person from one particular region of the United States and from a very particular age range. And I'm like, yeah, this is very, very niche. Y'all know who this person is. The rest of us don't. We're just concerned because this person just keeps going off and looking damn near in tears every 3 to 4 videos that we scroll. Like, a lot of us are acting out of concern. Like, is this a mutual aid moment? Are they escaping domestic abuse? We don't know. But how you don't know this person? Because everybody don't know everything. Bad Bunny wasn't an artist I'd never listened to until the Super Bowl. Same. I found out that there were 2 songs, and I know I've admitted this. I'm horrible with this. I am not always the best at artist names or whatever, or even knowing what an artist looks like. I will hear a song, and then I'll add it to a playlist and just be listening to it. But as far as knowing what he looked like, being able to pull him out, I did not know. And I have seen snippets of performances of his and videos of his all over different social medias. Had no idea who he was because a lot of people, just like myself, don't always caption things. It's a vibe. It's informative. Just rock with it and move on. If you want more detail, yeah. But coming from the Kaufman Chronicles, Massie blasts Trump as Epstein administration in fiery ABC interview. Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky took a sharp public shot at former President Donald Trump Sr. Two days ago. Okay. This article is from 2 days ago. I'm reading it just. Let's pull up Missy Elliott and rewind this. Okay. Representative Tommy. This why I don't do shows normally before 3 o'clock. We're gonna get it together. About to finish this coffee. We're gonna move on to Mountain Dew because we know I am fueled by coffee, Mountain Dew, and historic rage. Representative Thomas Massie of Kentucky took a sharp public shot at former President Donald Trump on ABC's This Week Sunday, accusing Trump of backtracking on promises of transparency and tying him to what Massie called the Epstein class. Hold on. Because y'all not about to be out here doubting my ability to read. Absolutely not. No, you won't. Don't you know no good? Because it says, that's what it say. Hold on. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. Hold on, I'm about to show you. For anybody who didn't believe that this show was live before, like, I believe you pre-record this. Pre-record these nuts. It's live. What's that say, class? What does that say? I even highlighted it for y'all, just so y'all know. I am literate. I'm lit and literate. Mm-hmm. That's what they said. Shot at former President Trump. Yep. Massie's comments underline a growing feud between him and Trump, who has endorsed a primary challenger, retired Navy SEAL Ed Gallagher, in Kentucky's 4th District ahead of the May primary. The former president, why do they keep calling him the former? This article is from 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And we know when the last release of I know I'm real petty when it comes to Trump and his administration. But let me be. I'm not being petty right now. I'm just doing my job. I'm just. The former president has repeatedly criticized Massie, including publicly calling him a moron as part of the campaign to unseat the incumbent. I don't know. Calling somebody a moron in Kentucky is not doing what you think it's doing. They see the future. They definitely see the future, Harley, because, oh, child. Former president, like, multiple times. Former President Donald Trump. Lord, Jesus. But seriously, I'm going to need y'all, if you're going to insult people, learn the different regions of the United States. Calling somebody an idiot in certain parts of the United States, it don't sting the way y'all think it's going to sting. It doesn't. Like, there are people that are like, heck yeah, y'all, I'm an idiot. Who you calling the village idiot? We love the village idiot. My granddaddy was the last village idiot. I'm a vote for the idiot. I come from a long line of idiots. Like, know your audience, know your audience, read the room. Now, moving on from the mirror.com, from the Mirror US, DOJ releases 300 high-profile names in the Jeffrey Epstein case. I'm going to put up the full list part by part. The Department of Justice has released a list of 300 politicians and public figures named in the Jeffrey Epstein files after Attorney General Pam Bondi told Congress that all documents related to the case were made public. Her lips were made for lying. That's just what they do. And one of these days we're gonna pop her right in front of you. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, a.k.a. Mr. Still the personal attorney of Donald John Trump Sr., and no, I'm not being facetious. Go back and look at his confirmation hearing. He said on the record in front of the entirety of the world that he will still be acting in the manner of personal legal representation for Donald John Trump Sr. Ann Bondi said that privileged material is still being withheld, but shared a list of government officials and individuals who appeared in the files in a letter to the heads of the House and Senate Judiciary Committees. Being mentioned in the Epstein files is not an indication of wrongdoing. Correct, because there are emails, there are text messages, there are there's transcripts of voicemails and phone conversations, there's flight logs and once again, there's not a lot of context given to a lot of things. So you could be in the files because somebody was like, you know what? I'm going to go to insert designer's name here, fashion show, because I really love what they do with blah, blah, blah. Remember when they styled insert person's name here? Oh, I just love that. And I went to their house too, and they had catering from insert chef here. And this is why they're intentionally not giving context for things and putting out lists like this. They're doing it on the purpose. Very much so on purpose. Some of the names include President Donald Trump, Barack and Michelle Obama, and let's not forget, Barack and Michelle Obama ended up because of an exchange between Epstein and Bill Barr, where Epstein was insinuating that the Obamas had turned their backs on Black people after making money off of the backs of Black people, because now that they've made some money, they're only hanging out with the rich, further cementing Epstein's racism, because he equates wealth to being a white thing and a white thing only. Bill Gates and Bill and Hillary Clinton also included are Prince Harry, Woody Allen, Kamala Harris, Mark Zuckerberg, Bruce Springsteen, Elon Musk, Pope John Paul II, Nancy Pelosi, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Beyonce, and more. It comes as the Epstein autopsy photos revealed his staggering neck injuries. Yeah, so let's keep in mind that yet again, the Epstein-Maxwell files are a conglomerate of different document types. Like if someone, say something were to happen to me, and they were like, oh, we're going to go through the Taz files, all of her notes on everything. Child, they can say pretty much everybody who's ever come in contact with me, who's ever stepped foot on this planet, are in the file. I got notes on everything. Notes to help me remember who somebody is after I meet them. Notes on students, on what works best to teaching them, whether minor students, adult students. Notes on who's in Bible study with me. Notes on who's in the Sunday school class with me. Notes on history that has unfolded in my lifetime. I need y'all to think. Like, if you kept files and not even you're trying to keep track of people, or somebody went through your text messages and was like, oh, here's a list of who they was talking about, and gave no context. And trust me, that has happened to me. That has happened to me where somebody was like, you know what? She was talking about you, baby. I'm just as human as anybody else. Do I vent about people? Yes. Have I talked about people? Yes. Because sometimes, I like the little outfit you had on today. And me and my bestie might sit back and talk about how good you looked in that outfit. We do. I ain't gonna lie. Or I may not have understood a post that you put up. I may not have understood your video that you put up 2 days ago. And I've been asking multiple people to break it down so that I can ask you the right questions when I come to you to get your explanation of it. That's called human nature. But when you take things out of context and try to make it all salacious and shit, this is where we go. And we're not forgetting, they're banking on the literacy crisis and the critical thinking crisis that we have going on right now. Oh, Kurt Cobain is on the list. Elvis Presley is on the list. Norma Jean is on the list, aka Marilyn Monroe. But once again, they took this list based upon, this is why I told people, be very careful and be very mindful. Should you do it, because a lot of people are just typing in names like, oh yeah, I knew this person was in there. Yeah. Are we forgetting the amount of communication that went back and forth? A big chunk of what people have been discussing have been text messages, emails, and things like that. The other day, was looking for a particular text message that I had sent someone, because we were talking and they weren't remembering a conversation that we had previously, because I had cracked a joke and they were like, I don't get it. We never talked about this. And going back, looking at the cornucopia of topics we have talked about just since October of last year. The things, the people, everything, and nothing negative, but just imagine, when you get a moment today, just pick one text thread out of your phone or DM thread and go back just a couple months and think about if somebody made a list of everything and everyone you talked about. No context, no nothing. Once again, not making excuses, not giving a cover to anybody doing anything egregious, but we got to pay attention. Like, come on. It's utterly ridiculous. You don't have to further sensationalize this story. You really don't. Israeli intelligence sources reject claims Jeffrey Epstein was Mossad operative following document releases. Israeli Prime Minister escalates political feud following renewed scrutiny of Epstein's dealing with ex-Israeli leader Ehud Barak. A wave of recent reporting and newly released documents detailing the relationship between former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and Jeffrey Epstein has reignited claims that Epstein worked for Israel's Mossad, a theory Israeli intelligence sources and senior political leaders are forcefully rejecting. Here's the thing, you can be close to somebody and not be a part of their spy group. And I wonder if Barak is the prime minister that was out here viciously raping some of the girls that Epstein and Maxwell trafficked. Just a question. Ex-Israeli intelligence officials told Fox News Digital that Epstein never worked for Mossad, describing the allegation as baseless and inconsistent with how the agency operates. Not to mention, when would he be able to be a good spy? The circles that he was in, he wouldn't have been able to provide them the information that they wanted. What he was gathering and what would be beneficial to other governments. The only government that truly Epstein was a benefit for was the Russian government, post-Soviet Union. And that's only because Trump and his political aspirations and the blackmail material and the information that Epstein could provide to the enemy. You have to think. Once upon a time, I would travel with scouts, college scouts for athletes. I would get video, pictures, interview different people, like be their historian to have, information to further their claim, further their desire to recruit certain athletes, right? In doing that, that does not mean that I was working for this additional department no, that's not how it works. And also in gathering that information while helping with recruitment on that level, I also got to see, and sometimes accidentally, got the worst of the worst on other students, on other athletes. There were times when we go back to edit stuff down, you find an ain't shit athlete going off on the coach. Get footage of athlete having the worst game or series of games in their career. See, Epstein was focused on the gathering the it. You don't want this to come to light. Other countries outside of the United States have no problem pulling into official residences and putting handcuffs on their leaders and putting them on trial. The United States thinks that they're saving face by not doing that. You're not. You're not. Just like you're not saving face as a domestic violence abuse victim by pretending that everything's okay when your abuser is just like, fuck it, and they're knocking your shit smooth off in public every day. Even BB from Philly, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, publicly pushed back on the claims, writing on X, and I quote, Jeffrey Epstein's unusual close relationship with Ehud Barak doesn't suggest Epstein worked for Israel. It proves the opposite. And that's the thing. I need y'all to learn the order of operations. Every time y'all you found out that Epstein and Randy Andy were friends. Did you think that Epstein was secret police for the UK? Was he British security? Was he a part of Interpol? Like, I need y'all to think. Those that are friends with me, those that are friends with Thomas, Angry, etc. Does that mean that you're part of the Villains Guild necessarily? Does that mean that you're employed with GCPR? No. Someone that's friends with you, does that mean that they also work at your company? Does that mean that they're automatically a member of your church, your mosque, your synagogue? All right, we're going to put a pin in that one right there. We will continue tonight on our Conversations with Taz. So I have to go and prep the Taz effect for you guys. But as always, thank you all for joining me for a special edition of Tazisms, updates on the Epstein Maxwell files. I will see you all later this afternoon and then again this evening. As always, each one teach one, each one reach one. Till later. For just $10, you can commission a custom novelty commercial from any GCPR host. Want to hear them pitch a romantic getaway to Crow Pussy, Mississippi? Done. Need a shout out from Saint Swole Meat Vacations and Dating Services? We're on it. From the somber services of Boab Funeral Homes to the questionable listings of the $10 house matchmaking, or even a high-flying plug for Cranibus Catering, the script is yours.